Toulouse, France, 1969. A plane is about to take flight, but this isn't just any normal plane. This is the final form of planes, the future of airway travel. This is the Concorde, engineered and manufactured by the French-owned Sud Aviation and the British Aircraft Corporation. An aircraft that boasts a top speed over twice the speed of sound. This thing can make a flight from London to New York in only 3 hours, a feat that takes most commercial airliners nowadays over 7 hours. And if you're thinking, that's odd, this was over 50 years ago, how is that possible? Then you might have realized that this story does not exactly have a happy ending. The Concorde, a beast as it was, had a beast's appetite. Because of an uncanny fuel consumption, engineering challenges requiring high maintenance costs given that it flies twice the fucking speed of sound, made the upkeep and upfront costs of this thing astronomical. The initial estimates to build and maintain one were already outlandish, but the actual costs were almost laughable at around 6 times the original estimate. And because of this, as you can imagine, trying to sell the Concorde to airlines was like trying to sell cuts of filet mignon to McDonald's. In fact, despite several airlines across the globe initially showing interest in purchasing some, once all was said and done, only Air France and British Airways bought into their lavish invention, insisting that it would in fact be the future of aviation. A grand total of 20 Concordes were built, and it was in service for around 27 years until it was finally retired shortly after a tragic crash in the summer of 2000. Financially, it left both the UK and France astonishingly deep in the hole. The question, of course, is, given its flaws and complete lack of profitability, why did its creators insist on going through with it? As marvelous as it was, once global interest vanished and it became an expensive toy instead of a way to generate massive revenue, instead of cutting their losses and moving on, why spend nearly 30 years trying to redeem this financial black hole? Actually, speaking of financial black holes, here's a better question. Why are you still playing Genshin? Why do we play games that we hate? Why do you still go catch every new Terra Raid Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet despite actively berating the game on Reddit? Why do we spend 2 hours getting stepped on by Lady Maria, rage quit, decide to start something on our backlog, then go load up Bloodborne again? Why are you texting Destiny 2 again when it keeps leaving you on red? It has always fascinated me how we all seem to have at least one game that we play that we actively despise but simply cannot stop playing. For most of us, this is competitive games, because we don't actually hate the game, we hate losing. We hate losing. These games are usually extremely fun in the beginning because we're actively improving. There is a lot to work on and our rising skill is noticeable. But once we iron out all the basics and we're hashing out smaller, more delicate things like when the chance going for a harder combo to finish out a round or sideboarding for a specific card our opponents are playing, we kind of plateau and suddenly improving isn't so easy anymore. When that happens, because critiquing ourselves is much more difficult, we might shift blame onto the mechanics or the connection. And I think this is why some folks spend the second half of their time with the game chasing the feeling they had during their first half. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, because it's not just competitive games, baby. It's not even just difficult games. There are people out there that feel this way about titles from every genre. You've read the video title, you know what we're here to discuss. Why is there sometimes such a disparity in what we say and what we do? Now, I've broken up this video into 4 cute little categories, and somehow, hilariously, League of Legends fits into all of them. I'm very happy I don't play this game. So without further ado, let's hit the first category and talk about how the hate makes you stronger. Some games are built to make you hate them, or at least it might feel that way. Competitive multiplayer games, games with brutal, unforgiving difficulties that bully you and beat you down into submission. The Binding of Isaac, Darkest Dungeon, Overwatch, Street Fighter, Souls games, Fear and Hunger, Magic: The Gathering. Just by simply reading these names out loud, someone watching this started sweating. It should go without saying that the pain these games make you feel comes from the fact that at some point, you will do a fair amount of losing in them. In fact, there will be play sessions where you probably spend more time losing than you do winning. And in the context of single-player games where you aren't facing a human opponent on equal terms, most people attribute the reason for that loss either to the game or to themselves. And because of this, you might find yourself in a constant state of shifting blame. Maybe the first few times you die, you blame the game for being unfair, and then you adjust and realize how you should actually handle that situation, which feels spectacular because you've overcome real adversity. But because there is always that struggle state before you fully understand how to handle certain enemies and scenarios, you are constantly re-bombarded with the thought, man, just when I thought I knew what I was doing. Now, of course, when you finally understand that next boss or bit of platforming, you're back to signing autographs and kissing babies, and it's what pushes you to keep playing despite the hell you were raising 5 minutes ago. But games like these, in my opinion, want you to loathe them because that's what gives your victory meaning. They're both rewarding and maddening, but they are addicting because of something called a variable reinforcement schedule, which I've talked about before. This is how slot machines keep you coming back. They don't reinforce every effort you make, they pay out very sparingly, which in practice is what most brutally difficult games do to the average player. You only win a small fraction of the time, but once you hit the jackpot once, you're hooked, constantly chasing that fleeting glory that you once had before. The difference, of course, is that your skill is the determining factor here and not a random probability, but the fact remains that when you don't just get to win every time, it makes winning mean more and it keeps you coming back for a long, long time. Which is why Street Fighter has been suckling away at all of my time this summer, and certainly not for any other reasons. And this begs the question, what if we do add that third factor, another human player? Like I said earlier, the plateau exists. Eventually, once you hit a certain skill percentile of the player base, improving your own game doesn't come as quickly or as easily as it once did. And in fact now, to stay competitive, you must confront a big, sweaty, mean, and daunting reality: the meta. If there was a new trick or technique like the Korean backdash in Tekken, wave dashing in Melee, wave control in League, hyper tapping in Tetris, actually just kidding, that's rolling now. Rolling is the new meta. You see how this keeps moving? Bunny hopping in Counter-Strike, handling Oko in Magic the Gathering, other shit you've never heard of but want nothing to do with. You're going to want to have something to do with if you want to win at a high level. Artorias in Dark Souls is the same opponent if you boot up Dark Souls in 2013 or in 2023, but human opponents in Dota 2 in 2013 are a far cry from human opponents in 2023, because humans evolve, adapt, and innovate new ways to exploit games mechanics, creating an ever-moving standard if you want to remain truly competitive. If you don't and you just want to enjoy playing with friends, that's wonderful, please enjoy yourself. But I think another reason these games provoke so much outward contempt is because you can dump a ton of time into them only to then blink and then realize how much work you still have to do to keep on winning. The metagame can leave you behind, and trying to keep up and learn all the new tech if you aren't a pro can be exhausting. The game you boot up tonight may only be an echo of what it was back when you first fell in love with it. You might spend 100 hours on a shooter, have a blast, take a break, and then spend another 300 trying to recapture the fun you had in the first 100. It's for this reason that I am very much a massive fan of the first year of a fighting game's release. That is when I have the most fun playing them. But eventually, I just have to hang out my boots, because learning all of the new tech and relearning my character's best buttons after balance patches is just too much to keep a firm grip on, for me at least. However, for many other folks who adore that game and can't keep up anymore, walking away might be a little less easy, especially since they've spent so much time with it. In short, they are simply... The creators of the Concord were also in too deep. They had invested several years and exorbitant amounts of money to make this project take off, pun very much intended, and when they ultimately landed no buyers, they had two options: cut losses and move on, or double down and try to make this work. You know how that story ends. They fell victim to the sunk cost fallacy, which some of you I'm sure have been thinking about since the video started. In case you don't know what this is, the sunk cost fallacy is a little devil of an error that humans make. It's the tendency for people to stick with a course of action when in reality, giving up on it and accepting the current loss of time and resources would ultimately be best. It's quitting while you're ahead before things get ugly. It's driving to Target only for them to be out of Pro Controllers and then on a whim buying a new phone case and a soft pretzel since you already came all this way and spent the gas when you probably should have just saved your money. It's caving on your diet because you've already ruined it by having Popeyes for lunch. May as well go out again for dinner since the day is shot, right? It's continuing to play a game that you hate because at this point you've already sunk 100 hours into it. You've got a rank, rare gear, things you've built, things you're proud of, things you're not proud of, but quitting now would mean it all goes to waste, right? I use the Concorde as an example because I think it illustrates just how deep-rooted this fallacy really is in our psyches. No matter how big or important a decision, even if it is a several billion-pound endeavor, humans are still fallible to the sunk cost fallacy, which means you are certainly at risk of falling for it when you're considering quitting a game that you've poured a ton of yourself into. And this is as true for competitive games as it is for really any game you can play. Whether you're chasing nostalgia with Pokemon and are trying really hard not to notice its quirks, or just aren't feeling FF16 for whatever reason, you're already 30 hours in. Can you just walk away now? You couldn't walk away from Target. What we don't like to do is admit that our effort has been wasted, and because of this, past a certain point, it's often easier to just stick it out and see a game through to its end instead of putting it out of its misery, even if it's an absolute drag and we still feel like we've wasted our time playing it when we finally do finish it. Now, there's something interesting that I came across when I was researching for this video. A lot of people explain that discrepancy between their disdain for a game and their strangely hefty playtime by saying that if you don't do that, tons of people will hit you with the, well, how can you say you hate it when you haven't even finished it? How can your opinion be valid if you haven't given it a fair shot? Which leads us to... I simultaneously have a fair bit of pity and respect for the folks that go out of their way to finish games simply so that they can say, now that that's done, I can fully articulate why I hate this game. I came across this because I found an old Kotaku article about how a ton of people were requesting refunds for games after playing them for 50 plus hours, which is like calling the waiter over to your table and asking for a refund on your empty plate because your steak dinner wasn't very good. Some of the comments are gold though. I had no clue people did this, but it made me realize that even if I can usually tell very quickly if I'm going to vibe with the game, and in fact I often may be a little too quick to judge, a lot of people do genuinely feel like they can't fully decide how they feel about a title until they're sufficiently nose deep in the sauce. They need to wait and see if the story picks up. They need to know if the combat is surprisingly deep once you get to some of the bigger challenges. They need to discover if they find themselves thinking about the game when they're at work or at school. A lot of people may not know that they hate that game until hour 50, especially if it's a game or a series that other people are constantly in a hyped up frenzy about. Have you ever been playing something and then said to yourself, what does everyone see in this? Because to me, so far, it's just been fine. There's got to be something I'm missing here, but I don't want anything spoiled, so I'm just gonna keep going. There's this thing called informational influence, and you've certainly felt it plenty of times before. Imagine you're walking through a public place and you see a small crowd of people gazing up at the sky and pointing. They're really baffled about whatever is up there. As you walk by them, what do? Probably look up and see what they're looking at, right? I found this clip of these college students doing this, and it's hilarious watching people fight the urge to see what they're missing, but finding out what we're missing is what makes informational influence work. In ambiguous situations, we typically perceive the actions or beliefs of the majority to be an accurate source of knowledge, which has definitely never caused the spread of misinformation before. If you've never played a Zelda game before, and this many people think Tears of the Kingdom is fantastic, it can't be bad, right? I think this is another big reason why we often keep playing games that we hate. Socially, we know that many people can't be crazy, right? What do they know that you don't? And so, you keep playing and looking for answers. In some cases it's worth your time, in others it is not. But if you're chasing the same experience everyone else had and it doesn't quite do for you what you were hoping, then all of that time is regretfully gone, and there's no getting it back. We've talked a lot today about if the game you can't walk away from is actually bad, but what if the game is brilliant? What if you adore that game? You've recommended it to everyone you know, you have a Triforce tattoo, you've named your firstborn child Cornifer, and then one day you notice a flaw. One day you find yourself a little irked by how tedious your 9th playthrough is. One day you realize that you and this game are actually just an... One of my favorite song lyrics of all time comes from an old Rupert Holmes song, Escape, the Pina Colada song. I was tired of my lady, we'd been together too long, like a worn-out recording of a favorite song. And I think it's a fantastic line because it perfectly encapsulates, not just in the context of relationships, but in all things in life, how too much of a good thing can sour that thing for you. I had a decent idea of what I was going to write about when I came up with this topic, even before I posted this question for you guys, and you've seen responses to it throughout this video, but something I did not anticipate writing about was comments like this, pointing out that when you play something so long that you become intimate with every little detail of the game, you start noticing cracks, flaws, idiosyncrasies that annoy the hell out of you. Maybe it's that certain attacks on a boss are unavoidable under the right circumstances. Maybe it's that the in-game economy is kind of wonky. Maybe it's that a particular stretch of the game always drags and doesn't really add anything. Maybe it's that there are certain strategies or weapons or cards are just obsolete in the presence of other alternatives and don't really ever contribute to the gameplay. Maybe you should play something else. We've talked about variable reinforcement schedules and sunk cost fallacies and games that make you rage, but somehow this is the one that's the most heartbreaking for me to think about. Because it's not that you keep playing because you think eventually it'll get good, or that you feel like you're in too deep to cut your losses, or that the hatred makes winning mean more. It's not really hatred at all. It's just something beautiful, slowly wilting. It's the realization that something you love so deeply is flawed, and that you'll never get to have that magical first playthrough again. Is it better to leave the game once you're done and move on to something else so that you can remember it fondly, or to indulge yourself with the experience over and over until you're absolutely sick of it? Which I think weaves nicely into the last thing I want to talk about today, what we take away from all of this. When do we know it's time to walk away from a game? And the answer honestly depends entirely on you. I think it's important to understand what you are looking for when you play a game. What are you chasing? If it's to be competitive in a meta that seems to have left you in the dust, it's up to you to decide if it's worth your time to catch up and then keep up. Do you love the pursuit of getting better that much? Are you still playing that gacha game because you're afraid to miss out on the new content and feel like you have too much time and money invested? Or do you play because you adore the community, the characters, and the story that's swept you off your feet? Are you playing this because you want to understand the buzz? Or are you playing this because you're genuinely captivated by your time with it? Is the victory worth what the game is putting you through? Are you still having fun on this playthrough? Or are you just trying to recapture the wonder of your first steps in this world? Is it time to avert your gaze to let this flower wilt and go find a new horizon? The answer is up to you, of course, and I think as I'm writing these closing lines, I'm realizing what this video has really been about. Letting go, knowing when to move on. And it's not lost on me how first world problem-y this sounds. A man has crisis over when to stop playing games. I get it. I'm the same guy who made a video about having too much to play. Oh, poor me. But this is something that real people clearly deal with. And I think it speaks more to their nature as humans than it does to the games they play. What have you not let go of? What are you waiting on? Where is your sunk cost? What is your concord? Whatever it is, I hope you find what you're looking for soon, even if it means you have to look somewhere else entirely. So if you love what you're playing, I hope you never hate it. And if you hate what you play, I hope you love hating it. Hey you, thanks for watching, and I hope you got something out of this one. This is the third video in a row that I really did not like when I started writing it, but I'm somehow really happy with now that I finished it. I think I need a break. As always, if you like what you see here, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives like this one, and let me know in the comments what game you have a love-hate relationship with. If you have a love-love relationship with the show and want to help make it possible, be sure to give my Patreon a look. For $1 a month, you can get access to bonus content, early access, creative input, weekly updates, and even your name in the credits like you see here. Links down below. You might even get your name read out loud like this month's featured patrons. Crescent Wolf 879, Naru, Cello Vandervet, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Non-Dairy Neutrino, my boy, Praise, Queen Dopamine, Brandon Potts, and Tyler Matthew Bower. Thanks again for watching, take care, and please have yourself a damn good one. Would you guys watch a video about this?